Hey everybody, it's your old pal Chuck, and doing a little vlogging today. I want to start doing this a bit more often, and right off the bat, I guess you kind of notice what's on top of my head. This comes courtesy from Justin sent it to me. He was passed along a bunch of G.I. Joe hats. It was actually quite a while since he got them and was supposed to send them out. I think it's from our buddy Arun, but I'm not sure. Just took a while to get into my possession, so I don't remember the entire story, but this is the one I picked. It looks really nice. It even has that little sticker on it, so I guess I can't wear this on the street because I'll get shot or something, but it's all over print, really nice and soft, very felty. Really like that Cobra Commander. That's a real good look for him. But yeah. And I almost forgot. Top of the brim, G.I. Joe headquarters. Bottom of the brim, the Terradrome. That is really cool. I mean, somebody really put some thought into it. But yeah. Reason why I'm doing this today is day before Thanksgiving. A lot of memories, and what I want to talk about is the Survivor Series. Now, as most of you probably know, I'm a big-time wrestling fan. It goes on, I think, about almost 27 years or so. From WrestleMania 4, that's when I marked my first year as a wrestling fan. Back then, when I was little, there wasn't a pay-per-view a month. You had a Survivor Series in November, Royal Rumble in January, WrestleMania in March or April, and then SummerSlam. And then later on, they would add King of the Ring, about around June. And then, of course, you would have maybe a one-off show here and there, stuff like that. But when I got into the Survivor Series, let me back up a little. Basically, the concept of Survivor Series was team matches. Not tag team 2 or 3, but originally the concept was 5-on-5 elimination tag team matches. That meant that if someone was pinned, gave up, or disqualified or counted out, they were eliminated from the match. And the match would end when one team was completely eliminated. So you could end up in situations where you would have 5 guys left on one team, 3 guys left on one team, or you would basically have it where, it was a 5-on-1 situation, and the guy came back and started eliminating people. I think Hulk Hogan did that once, but when I got into wrestling, they had changed it from 5-on-5 to 4-on-4. And I think by the second or third Survivor Series, they added in the quote-unquote extra matches of survival, where were traditional one-on-one or tag team matches that were just regular acts. Much later on, I found out why they did that, and basically why the pay-per-view is the way it is today. It's the traditional pay-per-view and not focused on those team matches. It was very difficult to promote those type of shows, Survivor Series and also King of the Ring, because you couldn't promote one match. Let's say for Survivor Series you had Hulk Hogan on a team. Well, were people going to buy a show to see Hulk Hogan, and next thing you know, he's the first guy eliminated, and that's it? That was the problem. So they had to go to more traditional one-on-one tag team matches so they could promote the actual matchups. Also, back when I was younger, they had the thing where it started out on Thanksgiving night. It eventually moved to Thanksgiving Eve. And I remember just sitting in my house. Incidentally, it was kind of funny because I remember a couple years, it would always be that day would be my boiler conks out. So I would have no heat in the house, which was hysterical that it always happened like that. But we would watch the show. and it was great. We were excited. There's a lot of guys who were the top stars at the time, and you actually saw, guys getting pinned who you really wouldn't think were getting pinned, and by getting pinned by people who had no business beating them. It was insane. Although the one I should mention now is the 1989 Survivor Series. There's like the Andre the Giant team. Yeah, you may just want to avoid that one because apparently, out of that whole team, Harley Race is the only one left alive. That's actually a little depressing when you go back and watch a lot of these old shows, and it's like you realize those guys didn't live another 10 years after that, but it's a little bit of a downer. Interesting story. I don't know if it was the first Survivor Series or the second Survivor Series, but it was Thanksgiving Eve, Thanksgiving night, or something like that. The NWA decided to run their a show against it on pay-per-view. It was either, I want to say Starrcade, but I think it might have been like a Wrestle War or something. Well, the point being is you basically had both companies offering a pay-per-view on the same night. And there was a problem with carriers because they couldn't sell two pay-per-views at the same time. Well, I think what ended up happening is Survivor Series barely got more buys than the NWA show. And I remember reading Time Warner, who was like the big company at the time, sent a letter to both companies and said, look, the next time you guys ever do something like this, we're not going to carry either show. It is offensive, and it was really laced into them because they felt it was unprofessional. That's why you now see it where you never have two wrestling pay-per-views on the same day because it just can't be done. But what ended up happening is, NWA and later on WCW had the Clash of Champions, which is, they would run opposite the WWF pay-per-views and would end up doing better in the ratings just because it was on free TV. You wouldn't have to pay the $30. Yeah, $30 for a pay-per-view. How about that? Back in, that was back then. Nowadays it's all like $50, and WrestleMania is now like $75. Unfortunately, when you say Survivor Series to a bunch of people, especially if they're 30 and under, and this is why I don't talk to people about wrestling who are 30 and under, because they don't know the history of wrestling. Like, they don't remember the territory days, I should say. They remember one thing, the Montreal Screwjob, which, if I'm not mistaken, this is the 15th anniversary. We all have our theories. We all have our, thoughts on, what happened with Bret and Shawn Michaels and Bret leaving the company and having the title taken off of him. But, I really think in the history of wrestling that was a real defining moment because, number one, I think that was not the final nail, but I would say like one of the last three nails in the coffin of the importance of championships in wrestling. To have a world title change hands like that, I mean, 10, 20 years prior, the promoter would have been killed to be that disrespectful to the title. But in 1997, it was controversial, but nothing like that. And I think the other thing that came out of it was we had the rise of the Mr. McMahon character, which a lot of people at the time said was really Vince McMahon being the Vince McMahon they knew from the backstage. And I think that was really, without that happening, without that character adjustment, I don't think the WWF would have had that popularity. It's interesting that I'm doing this when it's on a Wednesday, and Tuesday prior was the release of the Attitude Era DVD, which I did not buy and have no plans on buying since I remember most of it. And really looking back on it and listening to other people go on about it, I do not think was a great period in wrestling. I mean, people made money, and God bless them. That's when you go to work, that's what you're supposed to do. But I don't think we would have had the Attitude Era without Vince doing that change. My favorite Survivor Series match, this going back a little, it actually wasn't a match. It was the entire pay-per-view. I think it was the 1990-91 Survivor Series when Ultimate Warrior was champion. That was probably my favorite period of wrestling because Ultimate Warrior is my favorite wrestler. But the entire pay-per-view was structured around the final survivors on a winning team would then get together for a final match of survival. So, like, the Dream Team, the $1 Million Dream Team, Ted DiBiase's team, they all won their match. So you had 4 guys there. You had, I think it was, because I'm trying to remember, it's like, you ended up, there was like a team that was like 2 guys were the survivors. So you had 6 guys on one team against Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, and Tito Santana, who were the only 3 survivors from their various matches. And it was great. It was like, you had that handicap match, you had Ted DiBiase, cracking up and going, woo, yeah. Oh, that reminds me, Flair was on the team. Flair was like, oh yeah, it was, Flair's team was against Piper's team. Flair took a flop on the outside of the ring, so the referees... Now, this is the funny thing about Survivor Series. The referees during these shows would, like, strictly enforce the rules, like, to the 10th degree. So, everybody got into a ring, referee counts to 5, nobody gets out, everybody gets disqualified. Sole survivor was Ric Flair. So it was Ric Flair and the $1 Million team because they lost to Dusty... I think it was Dusty Rhodes' team. Or it was Jake Roberts' team. So it was all of them against Hogan, Warrior, and Tito Santana. So they were cracking up saying they got an easy ride. And then, Mean Gene comes in and he's like, Hogan, how does it feel standing next to the man who beat you for that World Heavyweight title? And, Hogan does his promo about how it was the greatest match in the history of matches. And, but we have to stand side by side, united, and he's my brother, and I'm here with Tito Santana, and ooh, and then you bring in Tito Santana, who, quite honestly, was probably one of the luckiest guys in the world, because, he was with that company for a long time. And in fact, I think because of when Hogan left, he was still around. He ended up having the record for most WrestleMania appearances at the time. Him and Hogan were actually kind of tied, but now obviously Undertaker has it. But he was part of every show, if there was like a big group feud thing, he was always somewhere in the middle. He was always the go-to guy to get somebody over. It was just a great wrestler. Great wrestler, well-spoken, wonderful family man. It's a shame, he's retired now, and it's a shame that, a lot of the younger people, the 30 and under, just don't really know him for what he could do. But, so it was the 3 against the 5, and basically what ended up happening was Tito got a pin on Warlord, which everyone was shocked about, and that's what I was talking about earlier, the shocking pins and what have you. Then of course Tito got eliminated, and then it was like either 5, it was like 4 on 2 or something like that, and Owen and Warrior went to town. They eliminated the other team, and they were the sole survivors, and they were the ultimate survivors. That was the first and only time that concept was done, and I really think... I'm trying to think. I think from that point on is when they started to dial back the elimination aspect matches. It really wasn't until, I would say, 99, 2000, that it was like... They went back to having 5-on-5, but it was like 1 for the whole pay-per-view. So, oh, my screen just dimmed out there. So yeah, Survivor Series. That's a real Thanksgiving memory for me. Um, and I just happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Thank you for your thoughts and prayers. I know this past month or so has been a little weird with Sandy. I do appreciate your well wishes. Unfortunately, episode 69 of What's on Joe Mind, my microphone cut out at the end, so I really didn't get a chance to thank everyone. But we're fairly back to normal as can be. There's a lot of people who are still hurting, and St. Francis Prep, where I'm going to do a separate vlog about my conducting, but 150 families were affected. Um, and I said this before. You go maybe 20 minutes in either direction, and you get people who lost homes. You really go out on the island. It's terrible, and unfortunately, they're not going to have a Thanksgiving in their home, and we're not even sure about Christmas. So yeah, but thank you for your support. Thank you for your thoughts. Happy Thanksgiving, and hope to be talking to you again real soon.